guys? Sorry. What's up, guys? I'm Lizzie. As somebody who has been around and owned horses my whole life and has lived near the North Pole my whole life, a little bit of an exaggeration, but close. I want to share some tips on preparing for winter, getting your horse accustomed to the colder weather and adjusting, and answer some of the most asked questions like to blanket or not to blanket. So, number one, a lot of people that like to keep their horses in work during the cold weather have to shave their horse's winter coat so the horse doesn't overheat during workout and their sweat doesn't create rashy skin issues under their coat. And that's great, that's perfectly fine. I would probably do that if I had the right situation. I probably wouldn't do it to Stella because it would probably shock her so badly to go without her massive coat. But the only thing I want to mention is that you don't want to shave their whole back. You want to leave their saddle support area unshaved. And that is because where the saddle sits in the horse's back, it creates friction. And without the hair there to protect the skin, the saddle will create a lot of extra friction on the back and it'll be very uncomfy for the horse. You might notice your horse getting a lot more crabby, having a lot bigger reactions, maybe doing things out of the ordinary like bucking or hollowing out their back and other things. So just remember, if you're shaving your horse, just to not shave their saddle support area because your horse will thank you. Number two, no more pasture after a heavy frost. If you live in a cold climate like we do, you've probably already experienced some of the first frosts of the year. So if you didn't know this, a killing frost, meaning a heavy frost that kills your plants, causes the grass to spike in its sugars and makes the pasture overly sufficient in non-structural carbohydrates, which can really increase the risk of colic, founder, other gut issues, especially if your horse is prone to laminitis or obesity, or if you have ponies who have a lot less tolerance for sugars and are a lot more prone to foundering. This time of year, your horse has a lot of adjusting and transitioning to do between weather changes and diet changes. And sudden changes in their diet, like high spikes of sugars, can cause things like colicking and stomach issues. So it's very important to keep a close eye on your horse this time of year and give them lots of gut support, things like minerals. We always have EMs available for them. If you don't know what EMs are, go check out this video up here. And we make a mineral mix, and I make sure it's always available to the horses this time of year, which includes calcium, kelp, magnesium, baking soda, mineral salt, red mint salt, DE, and I think some of those ingredients vary. Sometimes we add some other things and stuff, but those few ingredients are very helpful for the horse's digestion and keep them from getting bloated and having stomach issues like colic and ulcers and stuff. But also, if your pasture's grass is a little bit longer than 3 or 4 inches, it should be more protected from the frost, so it shouldn't be affected as easily as short grass. And they also say if you are able to wait a week after a heavy frost, that you should be able to put your horses back out on pasture. But around here, it's frost after frost after frost. So after we get a heavy frost, the horses are done on the pasture for the rest of the winter, which is very sad for them. And I wish I could put them out because their pen gets very muddy this time of year. But I do not want to take the risk. I do not like dealing with sick horses, and yeah, I just give them lots of hay. Number 3, when to blanket your horse. For some reason, this has become super controversial in the horse world, and it's hard to find a real answer. So here's my opinion and a few things you might want to consider if you're thinking about whether or not you need to blanket your horse or not. First off, I think that older horses and sick horses produce a lot less body heat, so they need more help and prevention from the cold. So blanketing an old or sick horse is probably a good idea, depending on how cold it is. And of course, if you shave your horse's hair, you probably want to blanket them usually all the time. But for your old, sick, fragile horses, you want to take the blankets off as frequently as possible because a lot of times the blanket will rub and create sore spots and rub off the hair, and it can be kind of uncomfortable for them to wear it for long periods of time. Plus, the blanket can hold on to a lot more moisture than a horse's coat normally would, so it might even keep them colder. And if you're always blanketing your horse while the weather is getting colder, your horse is not going to grow their hair naturally like they would without the blanket because your horse is not going to feel cold, so that's going to slow down their hair growth process. So if you want your horse to be able to grow a healthy, strong coat, you need to let them experience the cold a little bit and not always try to keep them super protected. Number 4, how to know if your horse is cold. Now, this seems kind of like a duh thing because if your horse is shaking, they're obviously cold. But there are other signs that you might be able to pick up on before shaking, and you might be able to give your horse some relief from the cold, help them out a little bit with a blanket or maybe some hot water or shelter or maybe food. And those subtle signs of how to know if your horse is cold is if behind their ears are cold, that's how you know they're cold. There's a sweet spot behind the ear that is always warm even when it's bitter cold outside. But if it's cold, that means the horse is cold. So if you feel it there and it feels cold, their skin is cold, then that's a good indication that your horse is cold. If the snow on your horse's back is melting, even in a cold blizzard, that means your horse is not holding on to their body heat. You want to see the snow on their back piling up. That is a good indication that your horse is holding in their body heat nicely and is well insulated. And for number 5, we have what keeps a horse warm. Despite popular belief, blanketing and stalling a horse may not be the best option. Movement, eating, and wind block are the 3 things that horses may need to stay warm. It's better to let your horse have a lot of room to run and play and have lots of available food than it might be to stall your horse with a limited amount of food. Just like with blanketing a horse that is stalled all the time is not able to acclimate to the cold. They won't grow a proper coat and will be more prone to being cold. And of course, giving your horses hot water on a cold day will help them kick a chill and be able to relax their muscles if they're tense and shaking. And another thing I want to mention, if you're constantly bringing your horse inside and outside a barn or stall or something, especially if the stall is heated, it might be kind of shocking to the horse to constantly be going back and forth between hot and cold, and it might just be better to leave them in one place or the other. Unless it's a really bitter night, and again, if you have a sick, old, fragile horse or something that needs more care, totally understandable. But for a perfectly healthy horse that is able to grow a healthy coat, I would think that they should be perfectly fine being out in the cold with lots of available food, room to run, and of course, wind block. So I hope that was helpful. Let me know down in the comments if you live in a cold climate and if it's maybe your first year experiencing a cold climate, or if you already knew all of those things, or maybe I'm completely wrong in your opinion, but that's okay. But take my opinion or leave it if you want. That's it for this video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big like and subscribe. I post new videos every single Sunday, so don't forget to come back next week, and you can go follow me on Instagram and TikTok, and I'll see you guys next week Sunday. Bye!